Welcome to episode 3 of Duff's Adventures. In today's episode, we'll get into the final prep work phase before the inspection, our inspection results, and then actually pouring the concrete into the sonotubes. We received a few questions as to why we're placing this building 10 feet off the ground. They had warned us that the property floods occasionally. So just downstream from us is actually a river gauge that you can look up and view current river levels and look at historical. The neighbors had talked about a massive flood in 2017 that they considered the 1,000-year flood. Their consensus was that this was highly unlikely to ever hit this area again, in our lifetimes at least. And they shared that some years the water levels never came higher than the banks, so it wasn't flooding every year. Then came along Hurricane Ian, with the eye of the storm passing directly over the property, and then massive amounts of rainfall going directly in the area upstream of our property. The water levels quickly rose from 14 to 15 to 16 to 17. It eclipsed the 1,000-year flood of 2017. Thinking it can't get much higher, but it continued. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, all the way up to 23 feet deep. Decided we needed to do something, and we landed on building this elevated platform 10 feet above the ground. So getting back to how did we land on 10 feet above the ground level for this storage building? When the water levels hit their peak in 2022, we were left with a water line. We established this as a reference point, like a datum, and projected a laser level across the property to an area higher than the surrounding area. So we then measured the distance off the ground and added that flood height was, and then added 4 feet on top of that to land at 10 feet off the ground on top of this hill. We worked with a structural engineer to draft up a foundation that would enable us to lift the entire 12 by 20 Versatube building off the ground.
So at the end of the last episode, we talked about having the foundation pretty close to being ready, but in reality, it still needed a lot of work. Here you can see a time lapse. My buddy Rich came over, helped me go through and really clean up a lot of the holes, line them up, make sure they're in the perfect spot and alignment. And Adam came over as well. It was, at the end of the day, we've got all the landing for the stairs and everything lined up for the concrete pour. Even the hill moved. That was the night of the Notre Dame versus Georgia game. It was cold out, so I had a nice little fire, wrapped up in a blanket, had some steaks, and then jumped into the hot tub and watched the rest of the game from the hot tub out of the property. It is inspection day. So foundation inspection, they have to do a pre-pour inspection. It's where they're going to come out and check out the pilings and make sure everything is 4 foot deep, make sure that they're in the right place, and that they were all set and given the green light to pour the concrete, which is scheduled a week from today. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough with you and show you where we're at, and then we'll check back in after we go through with the inspection and let you know where we stand. So we'll start with a wide angle view here. You can see that we've leveled out the area. Got all of the original footers that we had previously poured exposed on the top, and we've put in a landing pad here. This is for the stairs that will go up to the building. They have to land on a pad. The pad has to be 4 feet wide with a minimum distance from the bottom of the steps of 44 to 48 inches. So we've put this board here at 48 inches. As we're pouring all of the pilings, if we have enough concrete, we know we need to have a minimum of 48 inches. That board is not fixed yet. We'll put in 2 additional screws and line it up where we run out of concrete. If we can fill this entire box full of concrete, that's just a bonus. Just a larger landing pad, larger area covered in concrete. If it's here, we might as well use it rather than just dumping it out on the ground when they clean out the truck in the chute. So we paid for 3 yards, and if we can get that filled in, that would be amazing. From a previous video, we talked about using these as covers. These are just pots for actually palm tree, like baby Areca palm pots. So we got these for 50 cents a piece. And it really helps you be aware of the holes so you don't accidentally fall in one. Coming over here, you can see one thing I want to get done before we get the inspector here today is we had originally planned to use 4x4 posts on top of these footers. Now we're going to use 6x6. So when we were building the additional 6x6 and enlarging it, they used to all the 4-foot or 4x4 inch plates all look like that. Well, the skid steer driving over top of it, us falling on it, flattened out a bunch of them, and they all have to come out anyways. Eventually we want it nice and clean like that. And to be honest, that little bit of metal that's showing up there, you could probably even clean that out a little better. So I'm going to work on that right now. I wasn't really thrilled with this Milwaukee grinder. It was a cordless version, which was great and handy, but it came free with an 18-volt battery that I had purchased. You get a free tool, but the whole time I kept thinking to myself, I should just be using the corded version. It's a lot stronger, and this kept getting bogged down. In the end, I did switch over to the corded version, but for this one, I used the cordless, and it got the job done, but I wasn't really thrilled. Much better. Plate's gone. The new plate will go over top of it and drill right down in it and be a 6x6 plate. Great. Well, great news. We just passed the foundation inspection. So, all clear to pour. The landing for the stairs doesn't actually require any rebar, but it doesn't hurt to put it in. So I'm gonna cut 3 pieces to the minimum length of the landing and go ahead and use some chairs to hold them in place. These are the rebar chairs. Rebar sits in it. You can cross it over, so we're gonna put it in a deep groove for this one, and then put a crossbar. So we have these bars now in it. Now we're just going to go ahead and put a crossbar on each one. And then these chairs, they just hold it off the ground. So we'll put a quick wire tie on each one and get them tied together. Okay, get all of them crossbarred there. I'll pre-cut a section for down there and have it ready If they have an extra concrete to go down there, then great, but not a big deal, since this flat work doesn't require any actual inspections, and in the drawing, engineer drawing for it, it doesn't call out any wire mesh or rebar. This is just going above and beyond, kind of a best practice, probably overkill, but I'd rather have it in there and make it solid. Another little mini project. We already dug the holes when we had the auger for a couple posts out by the ditch at the entrance to the property. So gonna go out there now and put these in, but beforehand, put them in, I wanna make the part that's gonna go in the ground wider. So I'm gonna attach a 2x4 to each side, just a small piece, so that it'll act as a preventer to allow these to float up out of the ground. If there's another flood and they become buoyant, we don't want them to float out of the ground. By having the 2x4 attached on each side, screwed into them, it catches the dirt and will hold them down in, because we're not going to concrete these in. They're just posts to make sure people don't go off the edge of the driveway and into the ditch at the front entrance. So they don't need concrete, but we'll at least go through and make sure they don't float away in the next flood. All right, that's finished product. The idea being that when this end is in the ground, dirt will come on top of here, hold it in. It'll be harder for this post to float out of the ground. May not be perfect, but it should work for what we need. It's not going to be structural supportive. It's just a guide post. Out at the entrance of the driveway, this is where we dug the hole. There's one on each side of the driveway. You can see there's a bent over reflector there where somebody leaving the driveway hit it. The purpose of these posts is just to guide and put them in both sides. All right, let's get to it. Pack it in, make sure it's nice and level. Not really a flat side on any of these posts. They're all wonky. Let's see what we can do about getting it at least look presentable. This is pretty straightforward. Just put the post in, level it out. I had to check it a few times, make sure it stayed level. The post isn't really straight up and down, so you're getting it close to level. Just used a 2x4 to compact the dirt in the holes. Call that one done. The next one's the same. So the concrete truck's finally arrived. The pump truck is here as well. Hired a company to go through and actually pump the concrete as it comes out of the truck into the tubes, rather than trying to run it back and forth with rail beds. What's that?
I'm going to put some on the end.
Okay. And the walkthrough at the end. So, had a little extra leftovers in the pump. We poured that. Just, we'll figure out where we want to place it. Maybe somewhere around camp. This is all finished off. This is where the stairs will come down. It'll be a landing. The stairs will land right in this area. Then nice little long landing area. All of the sonotubes have been filled with concrete, 4 feet deep, 12-inch diameter, and 6x6s that are embedded in here. Do a little walkthrough. You can see here, they're all now filled. Okay, that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed before, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to this, as we are starting to grow this channel and make much more videos about this Versatube building that we'll be putting on here coming future state. The Versatube 12 by 20 building will be on top of there. And now that we have the foundation done, we can go vertical. We have 25 6x6s that will go get installed next and have to get placed on top of all those sonotubes when they harden. So again, thanks again for watching.